Hi guys, my name is Ollie. I'm a final year medical student at the University of Warwick in the UK. Once again, trying to answer some of your questions, and this one could be quite interesting. I've had a few questions voiced in slightly different ways, but asking about the kind of negative tropes of medical students. Why are med students so cliquey? Why are med students so snaky with one another some percentage of the time? Why are medical students dickheads? I'm going to try and capture a few of these ideas in one video and hopefully not go on and ramble too much. And I just want to jump right in by tackling this first idea of why do medical students, that is student doctors, whichever title you like, have a reputation for being a bit aloof, a bit cliquey? Is there anything to that? And yes, actually, in practicality, I think there probably is. And I get this not just from interacting, myself with people from other courses and my course mates, but also speaking to colleagues at other universities, other medical schools. I think the reason for this is that medical students seem to gather very much with themselves and be a bit cliquey, as it were, is that the nature of the course and the intensity of what you're doing is kind of by necessity a very strong bonding experience, and you have a very unique set of shared experiences and insights that most people don't have. I think we are very fortunate almost as medical students, and healthcare students in general will understand this. For better or worse, receive an insight into other people's lives and into just human life in general, and death, crucially, that most people never have. It's almost like seeing through the looking glass. To a certain extent, you are trained to understand how people think, and to an extent almost manipulate how people think or negotiate how other people are going to think. Because even conversing with other staff members and with patients, you're constantly playing this game of building rapport, getting people to trust you and provide you with information that you need in order to help them, as well as just being involved, like I say, in many processes and conversations and situations that many people never will, thankfully. So you will see conversations about death, you will see people having surgery, you will see what people look like on the inside, you will see dead bodies, you will see anatomy specimens, you will speak to people at every stage of life. You will see people being born, you will have psychiatric consults with people talking about their mental health, you will understand physical health. All of this, I think, shapes your thinking in quite a peculiar way, and because of that you're actually quite limited in terms of the people that you can talk to who will understand the types of things that you understand and wish to talk about those things. And because medical school is often so intense and all-consuming, because of the amount of hours that you spend either on placement thinking about medicine and doing medicine or studying medicine, oftentimes, and this isn't a good thing, I don't think, it can become a bit all-consuming. And certainly around exam period, for example, like I am at the moment, your entire life is basically dictated either by what you're doing in medical school or thinking about medicine when you're not in medical school. And I think to a degree it is this shared mentality that means that healthcare students, but particularly medical students, seem to develop this reputation for hanging out with each other, because there is that common shared identity that it's difficult to get elsewhere. That's just my take on this weird phenomenon. I genuinely don't think it is any sort of superiority complex or anything like that, although that is a problem, again, with doctors and with medical students. But that's my take on why this happens. That's why they can tend to seem a little bit aloof and distant around other people. Now onto the second element of this. Why do med students have a reputation sometimes for being a bit snaky, as such is the word that's often used, often undermining each other? And this is true to some extent, and it's not true in others. I think the basic thing to understand, or the reason why this might happen, is that in medical school, unlike with many other degrees, in fact, unlike virtually any other degree, your performance relative to each other on the course doesn't really matter. So let's say in my undergrad I did molecular biology, everyone could get firsts or everyone could get a 2-1. It wouldn't really matter. There wouldn't really be any material benefit or otherwise beyond the person involved. Like if I want to work really, really hard and make my entire university experience about getting a first-class degree, that's fine. If I don't want to do that, that's also fine. It doesn't really affect anyone except me. Medical school is different because your performance relative to your course mates does actually have a material impact on your life to a very small extent, but it does have an impact, and this comes in the form of your ranking. And the way to think about it is this: when it comes to applying for your foundation jobs, the jobs that you will do when you graduate medical school and go to work as a junior doctor, at the moment, everyone is allocated to their preference of jobs according to two scores, essentially, two separate things. One of these is the situational judgment test, which makes up about 50% of this total score. We can kind of put that to one side because your performance on that isn't really determined to the same extent by how well your course mates do. But the other side of this is what's called your decile, or your ranking. And essentially what happens is this: the top 10% of performing students in your year at medical school, so not medical school in general, not medical schools around the country, your cohort, the top 10% of those people who do the best on their exams will receive 9 out of 9 possible points that are awarded for your decile ranking. That is to say, the top performing students get the maximum number of points available when it comes to applying for their jobs. The next 10% of people below them will receive 8 points. The next 10% of people below them will receive 7 points, until you get essentially to the bottom of the cohort, who on paper have the lowest marks in their year in their exams, will receive 0 additional points. But to put this in some sort of context, this is up to 9 points out of 100 total points, so it makes up 9% of your application to jobs. Being in the top 10% of performing students will get you the full 9%. Being in the lowest 10% of students will get you 0 of that 9%, but that same person could still get 91% of the total points available. But obviously all this means is that some amount of the points that are available to you are directly related to how well you do and how well the people around you do. And this, unfortunately, to some degree, pits medical students against each other. Because for this small subset of points, you are competing directly with each other. There are no external factors involved. You are put against each other by the system, and that sucks. I'm not a fan of that, but it's just how it is. And the other element, I think, unfortunately, to this is research projects and publications and getting involved in these extracurricular things, whether that's society positions or, as I say, research, because these things are limited resources and they can become very, very competitive. At the moment, having 2 PubMed Index publications on your job application scores you 2 extra points. That makes getting these publications a hot commodity and a valuable resource. Therefore, med students are going to fight with one another to a certain extent to get those things, especially if they are quite competitive people or they want to go into more competitive specialties like surgery. Because at any given time, there are only going to be a certain number of projects going around that can be taken to publication. There are going to be a limited number of supervisors who are able to take students reliably through to publication or who are interested in doing so. There are only so many society positions, say president of a society or being on a national committee or whatever. There are only so many of these things. They are a limited resource, and they do, or at least can, have some sort of tangible impact on your early career. So getting things like an academic foundation program or an academic clinical fellowship, these things are very competitive and they drive people to be very competitive. And this drives people into some quite shitty behaviours, unfortunately. And I only know this, sadly, because I've committed some of these behaviours myself. That's either dumping projects that you can tell aren't going to reach publication or presentation or whatever and aren't going to give you the outputs that you need, or trying to squeeze projects and unfortunately therefore people for the absolute maximum point scoring gain that you can get out of them. And honestly, that type of environment can be extremely toxic. But when you have a points-based system that is determining your applications to jobs and to specialty training, this is an unfortunate consequence of that system, because people, for perfectly good reasons, become extremely focused on tick boxes and outputs and will do anything in order to satisfy those tick boxes, because that's how they get ahead in the game. And essentially, I think this is why you get snaky medics, because your academic performance relative to each other does actually have a tangible effect on your early career. Getting jobs in London, for example, getting academic foundation jobs, you need to do better than your peers. That's just how it is. The London AFP, for example, has historically had a 4th decile cut-off to even apply for this programme. So you need to do better than 60% of your cohort at medical school. And if you don't do that, you're not getting the job. Nothing else matters, that's just how it is. Equally, if you go for specialty training, they want you to have a minimum number of publications or a minimum number of presentations. And if you don't have those things, you're not getting the job. So if opportunities to do these things come up, you have to take them and you have to beat other people to the post, because if someone else does it, you don't get it, and that does affect your career. This sucks. This system really, really sucks. And it's one of the things that really motivates me to try and make equity in accessing research and publication and all of this. This is going to be a long-term project for me, because I find it a really frustrating element of the system. The environment is extremely nepotistic. It rewards poor quality and volume of research over doing a smaller number of more impactful projects, and just generally it rewards shitty behaviour, and it's not good. But that's a ramble. That's my take on why we get clicky and snaky medics. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, there are 3 ways that you can help and support the channel. The first is by liking, commenting and subscribing. The second is you can buy me a coffee using my Ko-Fi link and help keep me awake during the editing process. My eye bags are Gucci. The third is you can use my referral link in the description below to save yourself 10% off Complete Anatomy 2021, my favourite anatomy learning tool. Take care, and I will see you next time.